are you?
Hello, this is Dr. Brown. How are you doing?
Fine yourself?
Doing good, doing great, doing great. Just calling in to start this the Health Facts show.
Excuse me, sir?
Calling in to do the Health Facts show. All right, folks, we're about to get started here on the live stream. Give us about a few seconds.
Next, we'll have Dr. Brown in with his show coming up with the right 20 minutes now.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon, listeners. You're locked into WVOE 1590 AM, the voice of Ebony, where your health
Okay,
is
Mr. Brown.
where your health is our heartbeat. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Brown, president and founder of PressureMD Academy, welcoming you to another enriching session of Health Facts, the show where wisdom meets wellness and knowledge is always in season. So we're here for another wonderful show. As always, we always find kind of different takes on health topics, that things that can help keep you healthy and help you think different ways about how to manage your health. And so today we got another topic that I think is going to be very pragmatic, very practical for a lot of folks, because one of the popular things now is to talk about protein and the fact that, everybody's like, oh, you need protein in your food. And, when we typically say this, what do people think about? They're like, oh, well, let's go get a nice big old piece of steak. Because that's what you think about: piece of steak, some chicken, those sort of things are what people tend to think about when they think about eating or getting protein. Well, what if we talked to you, or what if we told you that, you don't have to get steak, that there are other sources of protein that are not necessarily meat, that plants actually produce high protein foods that you can utilize. And a lot of times, I mean, not only are they good sources of protein, but sometimes they don't have, when you eat like steak, you have to worry about the cholesterol, the fat, stuff of that nature. Well, a lot of the protein that you can get from plants doesn't come with that. Also, it doesn't have to be prepared in a certain way. And we're going to talk a little bit about these sources of protein that are healthy for you, that are good for you, and that don't have, a lot of the what quote unquote negative side effects, negative things that can come with animal sources of protein. Not only that, a lot of times it's also very, very economical. And if anyone's been to the grocery store, we're looking for ways to make that dollar stretch a little further. So we're going to talk about protein without the steak. Some powerful plant proteins for better health. So let's kind of start out with what is protein. And protein does a lot of things. So it kind of builds and repairs body tissue, supports muscle health. It even supports immune function. It's made from some amino acids. And as stated before, protein can come from plants and from animals. So it doesn't have to come from an animal. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be chicken or fish or anything of that nature. It can be an actual plant that where your protein comes from. Okay, and that's something that people like. So, and in addition to that, it's also kind of a source of nutrition. So you think about protein, carbohydrates, fats. So it is one of our sources of protein that we can utilize, right? So when it comes to Protein. Okay, steak isn't just protein, and beans aren't just protein. So when you eat foods, a lot of times there are things other than this protein that we actually can that are come in that food product that you eat. And this is one of the reasons why when we talk about lifestyle medicine and food choices, is that we really want you to think about the package that this nutrient is coming in. So when you say, hey, let's get you some high protein, let's think about what else can be packed with it. So if you're say you need more protein, but also you need more fiber. Well, the fiber is abundant in plants, but there's no fiber in meat. Okay, there's no fiber. When you get that steak doesn't have any fiber. Then there's saturated fat and sodium, and that's naturally lower in your plant products as compared to the animal products. And then there's healthy fats. Most plant oils are associated with better heart health. So eating the plants can be more healthy than getting your protein from plants can be more healthy than getting your protein from animals. Then there's also vitamins and minerals. Now this one I think we can kind of balance it out because that is a thing about animal-based protein. They do come with different vitamins, minerals that are also useful. So in that case, I think it'd probably be a little more balanced out. Okay. So when it comes to protein, like how much are you supposed to eat? How much are you supposed to eat? How do we know how much to eat? How much protein you're supposed to eat? So the usual recommended amount of protein for most healthy adults is usually about zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And this works out to roughly, 50 grams per day for a 140-pound adult, and 70 grams for a 200-pound adult. So you just multiply that, and it gives you how much how much how many grams of protein you should be consuming in a day. So, and just to give you kind of an idea, so we say, all right, so you're 140 pounds, you need 50 grams of protein. So 1 cup of cooked lentils can provide roughly 18 grams of protein, but it also has 15 grams of fiber. So you get two things with this one meal. And think about it, 1 cup of cooked lentils, that's not a lot. And it's also going to be lower in calories. So if you're trying to lose weight, guess what? It's going to be lower in calories than most of your animal-based sources of protein. So now, 7 benefits of plant proteins. Number one, provides fiber. Most plant sources of protein are also going to have some fiber with it. Number two, supports heart health. There are numerous studies out there that shows increase in the plant consumption, and also those populations that seem to be more vegetarian, they seem to have better outcomes from a heart standpoint. It definitely fits blood pressure friendly eating. If you look at a DASH diet, that's one of the things it's going to encourage. It's going to be increase plant consumption. It actually helps with fullness because the fiber actually helps you feel full. It actually helps you feel full. And quick note about that, because we've talked before about what we call hyperpalatable, and that is foods that make you want to eat. One of the things that happens in the manufacturing process for some of these foods is they actually take the fiber out, because the fiber, if you eat it, will make you feel full. And so therefore you wind up eating a lot more. So it helps with fullness. It can help support weight management, because a lot of times your plant based meals are going to be lower in calories than those that are animal that have animal based proteins. So a lot of times, you always have to compare, and it also depends upon how you prepare those. But a lot of times, your plant based meals or plant based proteins are going to have the nutrients you need, the fiber, which is going to help you feel full, and then also that's going to help you with that weight management because you're not consuming quite as many calories. Can be affordable. Like I said, one of the things we're going to talk about here is going to be beans. And beans have always been a great source of protein. It also is also quite affordable. You go think about it, go get a bag of beans and just think of how many people you can feed off that bag of beans. Okay. And then it can fit kidney conscious eating whenever it's individualized. Okay. So let's think about top 7 plant protein sources. So when you think about plant protein sources, we have 7 that are really good. And so there's legumes. So these are types of peas There are beans, so black beans and stuff of that nature are there. And these things in terms of kind of interchangeable. Then you got chickpeas, soy food, so like stuff like tofu, edamame. These are also very good source of proteins. Then you got nuts and seeds. Those things are also very helpful. And then whole grains. And this is something that kind of surprises folks. And that is, if you ever look at bread that is made from whole grains, you will find that it actually has a lot more fiber than your typical white bread. And that is because the whole grain actually has protein inside of it. And so a lot of times when we think about source of protein, we never think about, you don't think about the bread, right? We always say, yeah, you want to avoid bread and things of nature. But if you get whole grains, that's a lot different than eating just kind of the ultra processed, kind of white breads and stuff of that nature. So think about whole grains also as sources of protein. So uh, let's go through it. Let's go through a couple of examples. So the lentils, we just talked about that. So this is per cooked cup. So a cooked cup of lentils has about 18 grams of protein, 15 grams of fiber. This is huge. And ways you could try the lentils are, you could put it in soups, you could put it in chilies. It can be flavorful in curries. You could think about it with tacos, with salads. Because remember, you can always take that and put it on top of your salad there. So that's a great way to get that. So lentils and lentils it can be cooked very quickly. You don't have to do the pre-soaking that you have to do with the beans, dried beans a lot of times. So always check out lentils and just look at lentils, try them out, do different recipes with it. And don't forget about curry whenever you're experimenting with some of your cooking. Beans, they're powerhouses yet again. Kind of the same similar families, but you're talking about protein, you talk about fiber, you talk about protein and fiber all together. It's the ultimate combination of fullness, steady blood sugar, lots of energy. You can get that from your beans. They're very affordable, very versatile. You can incorporate them into soups, into salads. They can be the main dish. You can do a lot of different things with beans. Then you got, you can do low sodium or no salt added to options. If you're doing canned beans, always drain and rinse those beans. Just make sure that you don't get the extra sodium in there. But honestly, dried beans are great. They're shelf stable. They're designed to last for a long period of time. A lot of times you can get, big bags of these beans that last for a long period of time. These are great for families because you can always you got a slow cooker. Oh my gosh. If you get a slow cooker, you got a bag of beans, you got a meal. This meal, and not just a one-day meal. You can have a meal that can last several days. So this is one thing about beans. I always think about that. Lots of protein and lots of fiber. And then you got another thing we have is chickpeas. So this is, and the thing about chickpeas, because I think for most Americans at least, you don't really think about these, and that's they're also called garbanzo beans. But this is the main ingredient in hummus. So if you like hummus, this is where it's coming from. And the thing about chickpeas is that it's very versatile. And yet again, another versatile food. And you can use chickpeas in salads. You can use them. You can roast them, season them and roast them. You can add them to soups. You can add them to sandwiches. And then there's a thing called chickpea curry that is really tasty. And like I said, this is a great food product. Then you got soy foods. Okay, so these are things that are coming from the soybean, and so tofu is one I think that's probably well known. So like I said, it's coming from a soy, and the thing about tofu is that it really kind of absorbs any sort of flavor profile. So if you want it with some, soy sauce, you put it in that. You can pop it in a, curry if you want to. There's a lot of different ways to make tofu, and so it's a very useful, very tasty food product as well. Then there's stuff like edamame. I think a lot of people, if you've eaten any, especially Japanese restaurants, a lot of times they'll offer you edamame, which is basically they steam this bean inside of this pod, add a little salt. You can also add like a lot of different other flavors to it. And then, like I said, it's a great snack. You can also use it as a salad topper. You can actually go and find, pre-shelled frozen edamame in the freezer section, and you could take it and you can actually, thaw it out, and you can actually throw it out. You cook it, and then, like I said, you can put it on top of salad to get a little extra protein in there. Okay, and then there's like soy milk, and some people use that as a dairy swap. So that's something else you can do. You can and think about it, with the soy foods, you can you can marinate it, bake it, stir fry it. It's a very versatile food, especially for those individuals that are looking to get away from meat-based sources of protein. You might want This is one you might really want to think about. Okay. Then we got nuts and seeds. So you got, different, like so very many varieties of nuts and seeds that are out there. And, so you think about walnuts that are rich in omega 3s. You got almonds that are packed with vitamin E, peanuts high in protein density as well. So these are things you can think about. Now, one thing I will say about especially the nuts is that you do have to watch out for the calorie content. So make sure you keep an eye on that calorie content, because sometimes they do have a lot of calories. They're very beneficial, but sometimes they have a lot more calories than one realizes. So be conscious about the calorie content. Be conscious about how much you're eating, because it's easy, especially if you find ones you really like. Some people like walnuts and they just kind of snack on those all day. The other thing I would say to do is that it is, if you can, if you're really trying to use them as a snack and you're trying to lose weight, and one of the ways to kind of uh, curb how much you're consuming is to get them in the shell. Most of the time, we don't do this anymore, but you can get the walnuts, and I know definitely walnuts, pecans. Some of these seeds you can get in the shell. Now, what happens if you get it in the shell? So, say walnuts. You got walnuts. You put them on the table. You use them as a snack. You have to go get your a nut cracker, crack the nut, and it takes a little while to get that seed, to get that nut out there. So what happens with this is that, number one, it requires a level of activity to obtain the walnut meat that's inside of there. This allows a couple of things. Number one, there's some activity going on there. So you got to have some grip strength. You got to have, it takes a little patience to get in there. You're going to eat that first one. And then now you want the second one, you have to go through the same process. This actually slows down how much you can eat. So you can't, if you got a bag of walnuts just sitting there, you just go in there and just grab a handful and keep going. But if you have to crack the walnut in order to get it, it's going to slow down how you're consuming it. So therefore, you're not going to be able to consume as much as quickly, which is also going to allow your body to participate in the digestion process, because cracking that seed is really part of that. You got to take it out the shell, and that is really, I mean, we don't really think of it this way, but it really is part of the digestion process. And so this slows things down. It allows you to consume the seed, and like I said, it helps slow down how much you're eating within a period of time, and therefore your body can absorb that, and hopefully will help you to feel a little level of satiety earlier. Okay, so just think about that whenever you're thinking about nuts, and that also helps you to prevent from overconsumption. There are power seeds also available out there, and that is, these are powerhouses full of fiber, minerals, essential fats, stuff like pumpkin seeds. Those are great. Those are wonderful. Chia seeds, which have relatively high levels of protein in it. Flax and hemp seeds, I think about those as well. And when you look for those, try to get the ones that are unsalted. Maybe they're roasted but not salted. Try to get those whenever possible, and that prevents you from consuming excess amounts of sodium. Okay. So, as always, we love these myths versus facts, because that's something that, a lot of times we don't get a chance to talk about a lot of times, and that is the myths versus facts. And proteins. So you need meat at every meal to get enough protein. And I think that, especially I hate to pick on my country, but for Americans, we really do think that. I mean, that's something we really look forward to. It's kind of culturally baked in that we feel like we need an animal-based meat product at every meal in order to get the protein that we need. But the fact is that a varied diet with with vegetables is typically enough adequate protein, and you can get that from plant-based foods. Okay? Um, and another myth is that eating plant-based means that you must be 100% vegan, and the answer is absolutely not. You can remain an omnivore, and you can still eat a plant-based meal. It is not going to you're not going to automatically change into a vegan or a vegetarian. You know, eating plant-based or enhanced, plant enhanced meals just means adding more plants and vegetables to your meal, and that is just a well-rounded diet. So you don't have to convert it to the vegan. You don't have to convert it to vegetarian. You just want to add more of these plants to the meals that you're eating in order to kind of round out what you're consuming there, and that's what you want to do. Okay, so if as we're shifting to this whole plant enhanced, plant predominant, plant forward diet, what you want to do is you want to start thinking about how you make your plate. When you know, standard American diet. So say we typically would eat a large steak, some potatoes, maybe a little bit, maybe a broccoli head or two in there. Think about, hey, let's go with beans, lentils, plus a whole grain, and then put vegetables on the side of that. And just, and one of the things you could do is you can look up the calorie difference between that, look up the cholesterol difference between those three, and then and then compare it to the amount of protein that you're getting. And that's a way to really think about how this meal could change. And I always encourage people to just give it a shot. Give it a shot and just see how you feel with that. See how you do with that. Okay. Because the large steak with potatoes and small vegetables is going to have high saturated fat, a lot lower fiber, possibly higher sodium. Whereas the plant forward choice, when you do the beans, lentils, whole grain, and vegetables, granted, depending on how you create, how you prepare the beans, of course, you can have maybe zero, possibly zero cholesterol, high fiber, potassium rich, and still have significant amount of protein that's there. And so what you're doing is you're simply swapping this out. Meat is 100% of the plate protein versus smaller meat portion plus larger plant portion. So, and even with this example that I'm giving to you, think about this. Maybe instead of a large steak, maybe you do like half the steak or a quarter of the steak. You're going to add some beans in there as well. That kind of helps get you that protein is there, and you want to have whole grains in there. That's going to have a little bit of protein as well. It's going to help fill you with a little more fiber than say the typical potatoes. And then you want to round that out with some vegetables. So like I said, maybe add more broccoli in there than the less broccoli. So you add that stuff in there, and this kind of helps. This definitely helps with people that are trying to control their weight, control the cholesterol, and or just need to increase the fiber content in their food. So just think about these sort of things. And like I said, these things can be, they're not written in stone. They're not written in stone. They're not written in stone. So you can mix and match. So you can, so Dr. Brown told me I can't have no steak. No, I did not say that. I'm saying cut the size of the steak and say what you can do is that say that you have a good sized ribeye and you cut it instead of in half. That's two meals now instead of one. Or you cut it in the fourths, and now you turn this into four meals. Now you're adding the beans and lentils in there, maybe some whole grain salads. Now you might have four meals instead of the one for almost the same price. Okay, so these are ways to think about how to accommodate a more plant forward or plant predominant, plant enhanced meals that can fit in well with your goals of weight loss, increasing fiber, lowering cholesterol or saturated fat, and that's a way to make that work in there. Okay? And other ways you can do this, half and half. So think about this. So you're making maybe making some chicken tacos, and what you can do is start with food you already eat. So like I said, maybe half of it, you're doing chicken tacos, maybe half of it, or maybe you were going to get two of them. One is chicken, now one's with black beans, and so you got that. If you're cooking chili, maybe instead of doing 2 pounds of meat, you do 1 pound of meat and then add some more beans in there to kind of give you a little more texture. Pasta sauces, maybe put some meat in there and then put some cooked lentils in there. Just change it up a little bit. And that way you're getting that fiber, you're getting the good benefits of a plant-based protein, while the benefits of a plant-based protein, while you're also increasing the fiber and increasing the benefits of what you're eating without a major change. Okay, so I can do that as well. And then of course we always got to look at the blood pressure connection, and that is, from a blood pressure perspective, you get a fiber boost, which kind of helps your cholesterol. It actually helps with cholesterol in general. You get key electrolytes rich in potassium, because this is something else. While the typical standard American diet typically is high in sodium, a lot of times is lower in the electrolytes that we need, like such as potassium and magnesium. So this plant forward or plant enhanced diet can actually help with that. Then you can get some cardioprotective fats, usually lowering your saturated fats intake, and that can be beneficial. That has shown to be beneficial as well. And then yet again, we're going to this whole food focus. So, and whole foods are tend to be lower in sodium compared to processed foods. So those things are there. Now, one of the things about this I have to mention, because I focus on blood pressure, but also kidneys, and that is, kidney patients always have to make sure they discuss this with everybody got to discuss this always primary, but like especially the kidney patients, because while you're increasing those vegetables, remember a lot of times they will have more potassium, which is beneficial for most people that have kidney issues, or these early stage kidney issues. But as you go further along, you may have to lower the potassium in your that you're consuming, because your kidneys may not be able to handle that potassium well. So yet again, as always, all of this stuff you have to run by your physician to make sure that it meets your individual needs, and make sure that that is safe for you to consume. Okay. All right. So yet again, and this is just kind of going back over that. So individualized care. So CKD nutrition is not a one size fits all. It is not CKD. Those of you with kidney disease, it's not a one size fits all. Number one. Number two, it changes as your kidney function changes. So in the beginning, you may be able to eat all the stuff that everybody else can eat, but as the kidney gets weaker, you may have to change that around. So make sure you're in good communication with your primary doctor and your kidney doctor to make sure that what you're eating is appropriate for you as well. So some of the questions you could ask are what your daily protein targets are, your potassium and phosphorus limits, sodium allowances, and then of course it's dialysis versus non-dialysis guidelines. So those of you on dialysis, you should be in good connection with a dietitian. Most of these dialysis units will have a dietitian, so of course you want to check with them and make sure you're doing properly. Then of course those that are not on dialysis, yours just have to be individualized and make sure that your kidneys are able to handle the changes in the diet that you're making. Okay, so now, so what are we going to? We're going to do we're going to do a little challenge here. So we want to make sure we're adding one plant protein to your shopping list. Consider making one meatless meal this week. Try some half meat, half bean combination, and maybe one of your favorite recipes. Read the sodium levels, and then ask your care team about nutrition guidance, especially if you have CKD. I think everybody should do it in general, but especially if you have CKD. So yet again, I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor. Make sure with anything that we're discussing on here that you discuss it with your physician to make sure that these any recommendations, any education that you're getting is appropriate for you. And so yet again, make one protein swap this week. That's your challenge for this week. I would like to thank everybody for listening in. Thank everybody for listening in, and whether it's the folks on WVOE, I appreciate you all listening in. Also, those folks that are watching on Zoom or YouTube, we appreciate you as well. And as well, those folks that are watching the recording, we really appreciate you providing us, with some of your time and some of your attention. We really appreciate those sort of things. And feel free, if you like it, click like, share, and follow. We really appreciate those likes, shares, and follows, because that's how we know whether or not this is the sort of information that you really want. So yeah, so like, share, and follow there, and check us out. Give us some feedback. We really appreciate that. Thank you for everybody for tuning in, and until next week, here's to good health.